Hey, Jason here from Simply Swider. If your GE refrigerator is displaying error codes like FFCC or HRS and you're worried about expensive compressor replacement or buying a new fridge entirely, I've got good news. In the next 15 minutes, I'll walk you through common causes of these codes, many of which can be resolved through simple troubleshooting or affordable repairs, though some may require professional service. Before we get started, if you run into any questions, jump into our Facebook group, links in the description. We've got thousands of people helping each other fix their appliances, and I pop in there daily to help out. Here's what we're dealing with. GE refrigerators use electronic sensors and variable speed components that fail way more often than the main cooling system. The error codes describe symptoms like freezer too warm, but don't tell you which part actually broke. We're going to work from most common to least common causes. About 35% of the time, it's a thermistor sensor that's giving bad temperature readings. 25%, it's a fan motor with worn bearings. 20%, it's the inverter board that controls variable speed compressors. 15%, it's the defrost system letting ice build up, and only 5% of the time it's actually maintenance issues like dirty coils. Most people skip right to replacing the expensive control board when it's usually one of these cheaper parts. You'll see error codes F1 through F10, E1, E3, E4, or E26 on the display. These are temperature sensors that monitor your compartments and evaporator coils, and when they fail, they give the control board bogus readings. What's happening is moisture gets into the sensor or ice cracks the plastic housing, so instead of reading normal resistance, it goes open circuit or shorts out. Here's what you're going to do. First, enter service diagnostic mode by holding the refrigerator and freezer temp buttons for 5 seconds. Then run test 24 through 40 to see the real-time temperature readings. If you see dashes instead of numbers, that sensor's toast. You can also test it manually with a basic digital multimeter. Set it to resistance mode and touch the sensor leads. A good thermistor reads about 16, 3K ohms at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. If you see infinite resistance or 0 ohms, it's failed. Here's the key point. Don't replace the expensive main control board thinking the computer's broken. 9 times out of 10, that $400 board is perfectly fine and just getting bad data from a $90 failed thermistor. The sensor itself costs 90 to 180 bucks, and it's a straightforward swap. Just make sure you use moisture resistant wire connectors and silicone grease on the splice. You'll see codes F100 through F117, E7, E8, or that FF code, and you'll hear scratchy or surging noises from inside the unit. The evaporator fan circulates cold air through your compartments, and the condenser fan cools the compressor. When these motors start failing, the bearings wear out or the feedback circuit stops working. Here's what you're going to do. Run service diagnostic tests 47 through 49 to check the fan RPM. If the fan sounds scratchy or isn't hitting its target speed, it's done. Sometimes ice buildup from a defrost problem will physically stop a good motor, so check for frost on the back wall first. But if the motor's making grinding noises, don't try to save it. These run continuously, so once the bearings start going, they'll seize up completely. Fan motors cost $120 to $300 depending on which one failed. The condenser fan is the easier 30-minute job. It's behind the bottom grill at the front. The evaporator fan takes about an hour because you'll need to unplug the fridge and remove the back panel inside the freezer. Safety tip, always disconnect power before touching any fan motor connections. You'll see error code CC or E17, and the dead giveaway is your refrigerator is completely warm, but the compressor's silent, even though everything else has power. On newer variable speed models, this board converts your home's 120 VAC into a three-phase DC signal that runs the compressor. When it fails, usually from power surges or swollen capacitors on the board, the compressor can't start even though it's perfectly good. Here's what you're going to do. Run diagnostic test 61 for the compressor test. If you've got 120 VAC going to the inverter board but the compressor won't kick on, the board's fried. Don't condemn a perfectly good compressor. I've seen guys replace $800 compressors when it was just a $400 inverter board. This repair is straightforward if you're comfortable with basic electrical work. Think changing a car battery or installing a ceiling fan. The board's usually mounted right next to the compressor with mostly plug-and-play connectors. Critical safety step, often unplug the fridge for at least 5 minutes. and use an insulated screwdriver to discharge any capacitors before touching anything depending on the model. Capacitors can hold dangerous voltage even when unplugged. You'll see error codes DE, Delaware, or F200 through F203, and there'll be heavy frost buildup on the back wall of your freezer. The defrost heater is often supposed to melt ice off the evaporator coils every 8 to 12 hours in many models, but when it fails or the bimetal defrost thermostat goes bad, ice can keep building up until it blocks airflow. Here's what you're going to do. Run diagnostic test 60 and listen for a crackling sound, which means the heat is working. If there's no crackle, the heater element's probably burned out. You'll need to manually defrost the whole unit for 24 hours before you can replace anything. Don't try to chip the ice away with a screwdriver or you'll puncture the refrigerant lines. The defrost heater often runs 100 to 350 bucks, and the replacement can be pretty straightforward once you get all that ice out of there, depending on the vehicle. You'll see codes FF, HRS, or CC, but the unit often goes back to normal after you clean it up and do a hard reset. This is usually dirty condenser coils or a door that got left open, triggering the high temperature alarms. Here's what you can often do. Unplug the unit for 5 minutes, then vacuum pet hair and dust off those condenser coils, which are typically located underneath or behind the fridge, depending on the model. If you've got a built-in unit, this is even more critical because there's less airflow to begin with. Clean those coils every 6 months, or your compressor can overheat and often throw HRS codes depending on the vehicle. Sometimes people think their sealed system's shot when they just need to break out the vacuum cleaner. This fix costs you nothing except a little time. Here's where people get themselves in trouble. Don't try to direct start a modern variable speed compressor with 120 VAC. These need that three-phase signal from the inverter board, and if you bypass it, you'll permanently fry the compressor motor. I had this guy last month who did exactly that and turned a $400 board replacement into a $200 sealed system replacement. Also, don't chip ice off the evaporator coils with a screwdriver. That's the fastest way to puncture a refrigerant line and total your fridge. And when you're splicing thermistor wires, don't cut them too short and make sure you use moisture-resistant connectors with silicone grease. I've seen too many callbacks where the splice corroded because someone skipped the waterproofing. Let's talk real numbers here. Thermistors run 90 to 180 bucks at places like Repair Clinic, or Parts Dr. Fan motors are 120 to 300 depending on which one. Inverter boards are the expensive ones at 400 to 800 bucks. But here's what gets people. They'll spend 250 to 600 on a main control board replacement when it was just a $90 sensor. Or worse, they'll replace a compressor for 700 to 1000 bucks when the inverter board was the real problem. Follow the 50% rule. If the repair costs more than half what a new fridge costs, or your unit's over 8 to 10 years old, just replace the whole thing. Most of these fixes are worth doing yourself if you're handy with basic tools. Different GE lines have different weak spots. The Profile and Café models with variable speed compressors are really dependent on that inverter board. When it goes, the whole cooling system stops. French door models are notorious for those FF evaporator fan motors getting scratchy. Side-by-side units seem to have more thermistor problems, especially the ones that crack from ice buildup. And if you've got a built-in monogram, those condenser coils better stay clean because there's no forgiveness for restricted airflow in those tight spaces. The newer the unit, the more it relies on electronic components instead of simple mechanical parts. That's your complete game plan for GE refrigerator error codes. Here's your action plan. First, try a 5-minute unplug and clean those condenser coils. This fixes the problem 15% of the time for free. Next, run the diagnostic tests I showed you to pinpoint the exact failed component. Work through sensors and fans before considering expensive parts. Following this order can often save you hundreds of dollars and hours of frustration. Keep those condenser coils clean every 6 months and listen for grinding noises from the fans, which can often indicate potential issues depending on the system. If you guys know someone who's having appliance troubles, please send them the link to this video or a link to my channel where I have tons of other videos showing how to fix pretty common issues with appliances, sometimes for free or as little cost as possible. It sure beats having a repairman come out and spending several hundred for them to fix it when it could be something so simple. If this helped you get your GE fridge working again, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Let me know which fix worked for you. Really helps other people with the same problem. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We'll get this out to more folks who need to save some time and money. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.